Welcome, Dolphins fans, haters, and everyone in between to your favorite show discussing the greatest franchise in sports, the Miami Dolphins. This is the PhinsPod. My name is Moose, your host, and if you remember, we did an episode a few weeks back performing an autopsy on the deceased Miami Dolphins season, but hold on just a minute, because I got a call from the coroner, and something crazy just happened. He claims there's actually a pulse. The Miami Dolphins 2021 season is alive. Today, we're going to discuss Miami's huge upset win over Baltimore last Thursday night, how it happened, why it happened now, and what to expect going forward. Holy crap, the Dolphins just shocked themselves back to life, and it came on a week everyone least expected them to. Finally, some legitimate positivity. Without further ado, let's dive in. So last week in our preview episode, we discussed the perfect conditions that would have to come together in order to give the Dolphins even a fighting chance. Not a win, just a fighting chance. First, you needed to see a stellar defensive performance, the best that they've had all season, in order to contain MVP frontrunner Lamar Jackson. They had to win the turnover battle. You cannot expect to turn the ball over more than the Ravens and come away with a win, especially considering where these two teams are. And the wild card factor, in my opinion, having Tua Tagovailoa play. Now, despite talking about this path and how it could set up well for Miami if all these things were to miraculously occur, but even then, the most hopeful fans, me included, were expecting, in the perfect situation, a close loss, not a win. But no, our Miami Dolphins shocked the world in prime time by punching the Baltimore Ravens in the mouth, and they never let up. That's a team which justifiably has been considered Miami's daddy. I mean, we all know the recent history between the two franchises. And when you consider the overall trajectory of these teams, the outcome we saw was even more surprising. I mean, aside from week one, the Dolphins have had a rough go of things. They lost their starting quarterback, proceeded to then lose the next 7 games in a row, despite getting that quarterback back in that stretch. And then, finally, when you're gifted arguably the worst team in the league, you barely win. Last week, Miami's victory over Houston didn't feel so great. They limped out the game with a 17-9 win. Nothing to write home about, and frankly, something to be concerned with going forward. But the defense did play well and totally shut Tyrod Taylor down, perhaps a precursor of what was to come. On the other side, you had the Ravens, at the time 6-2, and considered one of the best teams in the league, definitely in the AFC. Then Thursday night came, and in front of the entire world, a team that no one expected much from, Miami, showed exactly what they could be when everything is clicking. Before we jump into the good, even the great, because there's plenty of that to discuss today, finally, but we do need to address some bads. The offensive line. Despite the win, Miami's offense still struggled to move the ball with consistency, and there really was no running game to speak of. The problem, though, has been persisting now for 10 weeks, and frankly, we know why. The issue is there's just no alternatives. Like, what's Miami going to do at this point? Greg Little continues to be inactive, and unless you want to, bring out undrafted rookie Robert Jones to play guard, I don't really know your options. And frankly, guard isn't even the biggest issue. It's tackles. But look, we're going to have to live and most likely die at the hands of the line going forward. But when given time, you could see what this offense is capable of. The potential for big plays with all the speed on the roster. We got more big plays in this game, a game that no one expected them to come, but more of them than we've seen all season. The offensive line unit just can't seem to get the quarterback enough time to capitalize on the speed that is on the roster. Look, you can hope for some improvement, and I still do, but yet again, the O-line was the worst performing group on the team. Maybe, just maybe, this win against a physical opponent can inspire a little confidence in the young guys, but again, that's nothing I would expect considering what we know at this point in time about the unit and how little they've developed and frankly regressed. The other bad. Listen, I got some questions I want to ask for the medical staff, but more importantly, the coaching staff. Because look, I get it. Injuries happen. It's part of the game. If someone can't go, no hard feelings, you can't go. Long-term health should always take precedence over short-term gain. And in that case, when you have an injured player and you want to avoid further injury, you do the smart thing. You make them inactive. Why is that? Well, simple, really. It's not because you're trying to send a public message like, look, everybody, this guy is hurt. No, you list someone as inactive because you're taking them off the active roster, allowing you to then fill the spot of the injured player with someone who can actually help you win. What I don't understand, though, is dressing someone and then using them as a backup in case of injury to the starter, although the guy who's the backup is supposedly too hurt to play. The thought process there seems a little suspect. I think you know where I'm going with this. Why in the name of all that is good and holy would Brian Flores make the decision to dress Tua, like make him eligible to actually potentially play in the game, but then not start him? If it took you until now, Brian Flores, to realize that a hurt Tua is far superior to a healthy Brissett, then I don't know if you can evaluate offensive football. I don't think you know what you're seeing offensively. And I mean, it figures, considering the consistent whirlwinds of OCs that we get, changes in offensive coaching staff, and overall offensive philosophy year in and year out under Flores. The evidence actually kind of clearly points to Brian Flores not getting how to construct a modern NFL offense. It took an act from the universe, perhaps the football gods, to throw it right in front of his face. Now, look, you never wish injury on anyone, and I'm glad to see that Brissett is cleared and seems to be okay. However, that was the situation Flores created. He believed himself that a fully healthy Brissett was better than Tua in his current state, and I think most fans and people who, get football know how wrong that is. Unless Tua literally cannot grip the football or can't walk, he's your best option at quarterback. Have you not seen enough of Jacoby at this point to grasp that concept? So after the universe created an opportunity for Tua to enter the game, Miami's offense picked up. The energy in the stadium and with the team picked up. Plays were made, and again, the Dolphins came away with their second straight victory, as well as an undisputed example of who the starter must be going forward. Yeah, Flores may not get the offensive stuff fully right now, but I think he's got a pretty firm understanding of defense, because moving to the positives, aside from the O-line and again that questionable pre-game decision from Flores, this was his best coach game of this season. Holy shit, his defense was electric, smothering Baltimore, both the running game, passing attack, and smothering Lamar Jackson. Look, we've been clamoring for weeks now about the amoeba defense. Where'd it go? What happened to it? It's the scheme that Miami seemed to run the base of their D out of under Flores, and it was seemingly gone. Instead, we had what appeared to be a Swiss cheese unit which couldn't stop the run or come up clutch on key third downs time and time again. Lost us the Jags game, lost us the Falcons game, pretty much the entire Buccaneers game. On Thursday night, that amoeba front was the base defense, and I hope that's going to be the case moving forward. Just to clarify, for those of you who may not fully get what I mean when I say amoeba front, I'm talking about that zero blitz look that Miami stays in. That means no safety in the back end. Instead, he's up on the line. That look allows for every gap to be accounted for and allows you to mix and match what you're doing as a defense, not just from personnel, but just from a play calling standpoint. And look, it's not like the amoeba front prevents Miami from doing other things, from playing zone, single high safety. No, instead, what the amoeba front allows them to do is disguise their coverages and confuse the shit out of quarterbacks. Everything has to be done post-snap when you play against the amoeba front. It is so much harder for a quarterback to decipher what you're doing as a defense when he's seeing the same look over and over and over again pre-snap. But then sometimes you might bring the entire house and force that quarterback to make a quick decision to save his life, or with the same look, you drop a ton of people back, play a little zone, or you do any combination of things. But it comes from the same initial pre-snap look. The poor quarterback can only make a determination of what's happening once the defense moves out of their disguise and into the proper rotation, but there's less time to make a decision there. And the offensive line may also have had difficulty figuring out who is coming. So even if the quarterback in that case with all these guys on the line of scrimmage, is able to decipher what's going on with the defense. They're like, hey, I've seen this. I know when they have this combination of players, usually they don't send Adam Butler back, so he's going to be rushing. Maybe Jerome's dropping, whatever it is. If a quarterback seems to figure it out, that's one step. Good for him. But his offensive line has to know how to properly protect. So they have two levels that they have to stop when there's so many guys on the line of scrimmage, and the pre-snap look is so confusing. So if the offensive line screws up, even if the quarterback knows what to do, he might not have enough time, and you still get there. If the offensive line picks it up, but the quarterback's confused, now he's holding onto the ball for a split second more, allowing for you to potentially get to him. You see why the scheme is so potent. So, talking about Thursday night specifically, how did Miami execute this? Simply put, Miami just stayed in man for most of the game. They crowded the line of scrimmage, leaving that single high look with Javon Holland or bringing him down to blitz. But the corners, the guy who you pay the big bucks to, they had to perform well, and they did. Byron Jones and Xavier Howard were left on islands, and credit to them, they executed well throughout the game. Here's the thing. The Ravens are a unique team, though, because the passing game is not really a traditional pro-style one. It generally feeds off of Lamar Jackson's ability to run. So when you're able to contain Lamar and then also stop that organic running game, which, again, the Ravens are suffering from a lot of injuries, but we still stopped it, it puts a lot of more pressure on Lamar Jackson's arm and his ability to be a pure pocket passer, and he's not consistent enough in that to make you actually pay. So Miami essentially attacked him each and every down. If you ran the ball, Miami made sure to bottle him up, gang tackle him, push him to the outside, and overall just contain his legs. They managed to do that all game, holding him to just 39 yards. I'm pretty sure his lowest total rushing in well over a year, and a 4.3 yard per attempt average. Then they also managed to get home when they did actually pressure him on passing downs. Miami finished the game with 4 sacks and plenty of pressure. The best part was Miami was getting this pressure not from just one guy. It was across the defense. Because look, if one guy like Emmanuel Ogbah had a huge day, then replicating that would be difficult. And it's look, Emmanuel Ogbah had a huge day and wrecked the game. But no, Miami did what they've done so well before, and that's scheme up the pressures, like they did at the end of 19, like they did last year. They ran creative stunts against the Ravens. They sent the corner or safety on blitzes, applied pressure on pretty much all fronts, and kept the quarterback and offensive line guessing about where the pressure is going to come from next. The defense was just outstanding, but I think an obvious question comes to mind at this point. What took so long? Love that you showed up and all, but why did it take until week 10 to see ya? Would have been nice to see this against Jacksonville. But I think there's a couple reasons for that. Firstly, personnel. Because to run the type of scheme that we're talking about, it involves a ton of trust, communication, and a high level of execution. I don't just mean trust and communication between the players. I mean trust and communication between the coaches and the players. Because there is a lot of responsibility on the back end of the defense, and one blown assignment can lead to huge plays. I mean, this type of defense is the Brian Flores defense. It's his vision. He installed it for the first time in 19, and you remember, with a bunch of no-name guys and youngsters who weren't that talented and couldn't really process the scheme, things went horribly. I mean, Miami was accused of tanking single-handedly because of that zero blitz look that they gave Pittsburgh, which they blew and then allowed for that big score. But if things aren't running 100% smoothly when you're running this amoeba front, then this defense is the opposite of shutdown. It can go really bad with blown coverages and assignments everywhere because that type of defense relies on a lot of one-on-one matchups. But finally, not only did this performance remind me of 2020, it was actually better than what we saw in 2020, and I think there's a simple reason for that. On paper, when you look at the athletes and caliber of players we have, it is objectively better than last season. You got better athletes. I'll take Jalen Phillips over Kyle Van Noy. I'll take Javon Holland over Bobby McCain. And generally, they had more talent across the board. And clearly, it's taken a little time, more than we would have liked, for this coaching staff to trust the young guys to execute. Because that's evident because of Javon Holland. He is the leader of this defense now. Not just because he plays the linchpin position in this scheme, the free safety, but because he's leading by example. I think the reason it's taken Miami so long to get this efficient and dominant of a performance is, frankly, it's taken this long for the young guys to grasp the defense and for all these pieces to come together and now be working efficiently. Because look, we started seeing glimpses of this 2 weeks ago against Buffalo. They started doing this a bit more, and last week even more, and now they pull out an amazing win against the Ravens. So it's not like this genuinely came out of nowhere. The defense has been ascending. It just hasn't looked so good because the offense has played like absolute crap. And frankly, the opponents that they were doing this to weren't that good, like the Texans, or they were only able to execute it for so long because they went down big against the Buffalo Bills. But moving back to Javon Holland, his importance to this scheme cannot be understated. And the way he played on Thursday night cannot be understated. The energy, explosion, overall vibe that we got from Holland on the football field was that of a budding superstar. He was all over the place, but we'll get to him specifically in our studs and duds section in a little bit. So, I do believe this team can replicate this performance. Be this dominant again? Maybe not, but not necessarily to this level because, again, the way they played the Ravens was masterful. I mean, shit, though. The Ravens could barely get anything going when you think about it, and I do believe we can expect a significant improvement from the Dolphins' defense as we wrap up the season. Compared to the numbers in the first half, I think the second half numbers for the defense are going to be much improved. And we'll get further into why I believe that later this week. Why do I feel confident in this unit when this team has inspired the opposite of confidence all season long? Because trust me, I can talk about this defense for hours. It is so fun to watch when Flores is dialing it up and his guys are fully in tune with the system. Moving to the offensive performance, nothing to write home about. The defense gave the offense plenty of opportunity to run away the game and blow out the Ravens, but they weren't able to. The game started with Brissett, as we all know. He struggled mightily, and although he made a nice few plays there, finding that wide open as Isaiah Ford, hitting Waddle on that comeback, and even that deep pass to Adam Shaheen. All in all, though, we kind of got exactly what we expected from Brissett. Not much, below average. The offense under him was not creative, not smooth, not fast, and every yard gained felt like a momentous achievement. Aside from that one big play we spoke about to Ford, Brissett was bad. But hey, I guess Flo still hadn't realized that yet. But he eventually did, because then he turned to his young buck, and Tua helped Miami get to 22 points on offense when he hadn't even played the entire game. Oh, and his fingers were busted as well. But perhaps the best part, for me at least, was seeing the beginnings of what looked like some creative play calling. If you remember, when we've been complaining about this offense like we have for so long, we often talked about how there was really no identity to this unit, right? Each play felt like it was being run in a vacuum, right? No rhyme or reason, no flow. Nothing was being set up over the course of the game. Nothing was being exploited. Thursday night, you finally saw some explosive plays. Yeah, Miami ran a cool little flea flicker, which tragically only resulted in 11 yards, but still, the fact that it was called, good to see. They're reaching deeper into the playbook, and at this point in the season, I don't know why they wouldn't. But on Albert Wilson's game-sealing play, that huge 64-yarder that was set up beautifully by the coaching staff, Miami gave Baltimore the same look, the same motion on back-to-back plays. A little creativity. They sent Wilson across the field towards the weak side of the play, and on first down, they handed it off, despite that motion, and ran right up the middle for a whopping 0 yards to Myles Gaskin. But then Miami did the same thing again, the same motion, except this time, Tua pulled the ball and hit Wilson in stride as he ran upfield for Tagovailoa's biggest NFL play ever. Baltimore was not ready for it. They blew their assignment and bit on the run, allowing for Miami to make a big play, finally. I think they bit on the run because they know how non-creative this offense is, and they're like, oh, it's the exact same motion. They're running. Boom. Oh, crap. They tricked us. Going forward, I do hope this creative play calling continues because you hope to see improvements from the young guys across the board. As much as we're done with the coaches on offense, like, look, I want new ones at the end of the year. I do want improvement and some development from these youngsters on offense and just some stability from the vets. Because, look, give Baltimore credit. They completely removed Mike Gesicki from this game, but give more credit to the rest of the Dolphins who stepped up, namely Albert Wilson and Isaiah Ford. Let's move on to the next segment of the show, our weekly studs and duds. And this is a fun one. We're not complaining as much. It was actually pretty damn hard to find duds. Our first stud, rookie safety Javon Holland. This was easy. He finished the game with 4 tackles and a sack, but his presence jumped through the screen, like we said. And again, with Holland, you've seen inklings of improvement each week, but he played by far the best game of his career Thursday. Holland was used in nearly every aspect of the defense. Along with Brandon Jones, who also had an awesome game, Holland spent plenty of time at the line of scrimmage, either blitzing off the edge, something he seemed to do at a near elite level, especially against Lamar Jackson, or dropping back out into coverage. There were multiple times where the ball would be snapped, and Holland, who started at the line of scrimmage, would just dead sprint to a spot, and magically, before Lamar even went there, that's where Lamar ended up going. And it allowed Holland to stop a lot of those quick swing passes. He seemed to understand what the Ravens were trying to do, and that is some high IQ stuff from a young player. It's exactly what Miami was hoping to get when they drafted him out of Oregon. That was the book on him. Look, he's a physical, smart safety, but the best part is he understands football intimately. He's not necessarily learning the game from just an X's and O's perspective. He's able to actually execute that on the field, and he sees it. And that was clear, especially against an explosive offense like the Ravens apparently, I thought, had. In most defenses, right, the middle linebacker is in charge of, the plays, the calls. And yes, Jerome Baker, is responsible for aligning the front seven, right? He does make sure the D-line is set up and his fellow linebackers are aware of their responsibilities. But this defense is not built with the front seven. Follow the money. This defense is secondary-centric. The free safety is the quarterback of this defense. Not only lining everyone up and making the proper adjustments snap to snap, but also being that last line of defense. Holland looks to be exactly that. Kind of like a Budda Baker, honestly. He was that impressive to me last week. If you actually remember, the first play from scrimmage was a quick swing pass that escaped, unfortunately, for a modest gain, one of the few the Ravens were able to get. And we should have known what was coming with Holland, since he straight up tattooed the Ravens runner along the sideline, sending him flying out of bounds. It was a hard, clean hit, and it set the tone early for the defensive unit. That's why, across the board, Javon Holland earned our first stud. Honorable mention for Brandon Jones as well. We got some talented young safeties, which is great to see, especially now that they're actually showing out. Our first dud. There really weren't many, like I said, but I'm leaning towards Preston Williams. We had so much hope for Preston. He flashed promise as a rookie last season. His physical tools, right, combined with that size, makes him a tantalizing prospect. I mean, Xavier Howard himself, when Preston Williams came in as an undrafted rookie, was extremely impressed by Williams. And unfortunately, he just hasn't shown up this season. He was honestly only targeted once with that overthrow from Brissett in the end zone, but considering that Devontae Parker and Will Fuller are out, you would hope that Preston could make some kind of impact. But so far he hasn't, and that's why I wouldn't really expect him to return to the team next season unless he picks up his play down the stretch. And with Parker still on IR, with Fuller's status being in the air, I think he will still get a few opportunities. Our second stud, Christian Wilkins. Although, look, he didn't pile up a ton of stats. He did only finish with 2 solo tackles, 3 assists. But like Troy Aikman said on the broadcast, Wilkins is a glue guy. He helps the rest of the defense out immensely. The D-line, the linebackers. He's not getting washed out in run plays. He's holding his own and applying pressure as well from the interior. He's really improved at shedding blocks as well as beating double teams, something early on in the season we did harp on him for often getting washed out of plays. That's improved as the season's gone along. And look, although he's in some world beater or game changer, he's not even close to an Aaron Donald type at all. But having a culture guy like Wilkins is great for the team. I mean, hell, we even saw him used frequently in the goal line on jumbo packages as a fullback. So if you're a D lineman getting to play some offensive reps, you probably got the trust of your coaches and teammates. And he had generally a great outing. Our second dud, Mike Gesicki. Nothing to be alarmed about here, honestly. Baltimore keyed in on Gesicki. It was obvious by watching the game that the Ravens were like, all that they have on offense is Mike Gesicki, so let's take him out, and then they can't do anything. And yeah, he finished with no catches, despite being targeted multiple times, and he wasn't really able to get much separation from all that attention. So for what I think will be the least negative dud of all time, Gesicki lands on the list. But to be fair to him, though, it really was hard to find duds, which is great to say. And by receiving so much attention from the Ravens, he opened everything up for Albert Wilson, Durham Smythe, and even Adam Shaheen, who finally made an impact. Not all bad for Mike, and I still wanted him re-signed yesterday. Our final stud, Tua Tagovailoa. Regardless of your opinion on his talent level, you know he's not been dealt a great hand so far in Miami. Amidst all the rumors, all the turmoil, this franchise has surrounded him, honestly, with nothing but distractions and doubt and negativity. And most recently, he's dealing with a fractured finger on his throwing hand. Tua, on Thursday night, was set up to fail. He said himself he took no first-team reps all week, limited in practice, and like the big ball-sack baller he is, he, despite all of this, went out and helped close the game for our Dolphins. He finished an efficient 8 of 13, 158 yards passing, and a rushing touchdown. A touchdown which was a long drive and sealed the victory for Miami. That's the intangible that I've been harping on for over a year now. The kid has moxie. He's got leadership qualities, and in my humble opinion, he has it. Do you think Miami wins this game 22-10 if Tua doesn't come in? Obviously, we're never going to know, but I can take a highly educated guess that no, that wouldn't have happened. Maybe Miami would have pulled out the win, considering how well the defense was playing for 60 minutes, but things would have been a lot dicier down the stretch with Brissett leading the charge. Or frankly, we would have lost the game with Brissett because this defense would have eventually tired out with that offense continuing to stall and punt the ball back to Baltimore. If Miami stayed in this 6-3, 9-3 game all game long, at some point, the levee would break and Lamar would escape for a big game-changing play. That's why with Tua, you got efficiency, smart football, ball control. It helped the Dolphins earn the convincing win that they deserved. Instead of maybe pulling out a 12-10 victory like they might have with Brissett, you win 22-10 convincingly. Going forward, unless Tua, like we've said, literally cannot walk or loses a limb, I expect numero uno to be starting down the stretch. And it was good to see Flores not be a total dumbass and stick with Tua despite Jacoby being cleared to return. And again, despite my clear hatred for Jacoby on the football field, nothing but positivity regarding his health. Glad to see that knee injury, which looked like it could be bad, isn't something to be concerned about long term. And our final dud, speaking of the devil, Jacoby Brissett, I won't keep trashing the guy. He tries. And again, if you're a Dolphin, I respect you, okay? Especially if you're trying in a Dolphins uniform. If you get hurt in the line of duty like he did, I respect you. And like I said, hope nothing but a speedy recovery. But when it comes to your talent level and your ability to execute this offense, Jacoby, there's no respect from me. You were putrid, skipping passes like Cam Newton, and frankly, overthrowing receivers consistently. We touched on the Preston Williams one. We saw an almost interception that Jalen Waddle had to pretty much play defense on because Jacoby overthrew it. And we saw an overthrow, which actually resulted in a pass interference, but that was because the ball was thrown so poorly that Waddle had to come back for it. In more pass attempts, though, he had more pass attempts than Tua. He finished with less yards and put up less points. If that doesn't illustrate the point that we've been trying to make for a few weeks now, I don't know what will. He finished 11 of 23, that's less than 50% completion, and 156 yards to Tua's 158 on 13 pass attempts. It was cute, though, that, Jacoby got frustrated when Flo called Tua back in. Cute, but don't you dare go starting drama. Know your place, and that, my friend, is on the bench. So, moving forward, wonderful victory. We get a nice long runway before playing the New York Jets this weekend. And we'll be covering that matchup in the coming days as well, so subscribe and stay tuned for that. Miami is now 3-7. Not great at all, I understand, but a path is open in front of us. As wild as that sounds, as dark as this season has been, there is a glimmer of hope. For those of us who retain that hope, so much earned joy and optimism came from this win. Can we get a little run going now? I mean, shit, no one thought we'd beat the Ravens. Here we are. To be fair, though, I do believe that the X factor we spoke of in that preview episode did rear its head. Remember, it was a short week. Baltimore had played an overtime game just days before, essentially 5 full quarters of football, then going to play a Thursday nighter. On top of that, they won that overtime game against the Vikings, so this was set up to be the perfect trap game. Overlooked the Dolphins, and Miami was able to sneak up on them and punch a tired team in the face. A punch which has been a long time coming. God, I love victory week. Fins up.
Well, you talk about the mindset, but given what all you've dealt with over the last few weeks with the injuries, the trade rumors, and some of the early season losses, does it make this one a bit more gratifying for you?
I just think any win is good. No rumors, no external factors of noise, has anything, to do with what we did out here tonight. So, it was a good team victory. We're going to enjoy this. We'll move on from it. So.
Okay, now the defense played well. You did as well, but might I suggest the game ball go to Robert Hunt? What did you think about the effort there by the big fella?
That was good effort. I think he tried to be an athlete. Obviously, he tried to make a play with that too. But it's illegal in the NFL and I think in college, in any football. So you can't do that. But props to him for trying to make a play on that.
All right, it still counts in our book. Thank you so much, Tua. Congrats on the win.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
That's going to do it for us here today. Thank you guys so much for listening to the PhinsPod. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you to Timothy Ritchie, Brian Guger, Brandon Leist, and Chris, members of the pod and supporters of the show over on Patreon. Check that out. Links in the description, or head to patreon.com/PhinsPod. Thank you all so much for the continued support, and please remember to like the video if you enjoyed the show, and subscribe just so you never miss a chance to chat about your Miami Dolphins. Remember that if you're listening via audio, it's available on all platforms, Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts, and of course, YouTube. If you are listening on Apple, we'd greatly appreciate a review. Helps the show out a ton, helps other Dolphins fans find us, and also love to read the reviews, love to know what you guys think of the show, what we could improve on, and what you're enjoying so far. As always, continue the conversation with us over on Twitter and Instagram, @PhinsPod. I hope you all have an amazing day, and until next time, stay safe. Love y'all.